Awesome. Well, I am you. I am I'm just a guy. I grew up in Bakersfield, lived my whole life here in Bakersfield, began my career, uh, worked in the oil fields, probably like a lot of you guys. Worked my way up, had a career, became an electrician. Um, and so that's just kind of my background. I got married here in this church, took my wedding photos right there. So um, yeah. So that's when Matt asked me and Andrew asked me to share my testimony. That's my thought. I'm just a guy. I fell. I got hurt. And I'm just getting through this day by day. And I can tell you, as I've thought about what God has done in my life, I can't get through it all in this 10 or 15 minutes that I have to share. So I can share that later if anybody guys want to talk even further about that. But my story today is about surrender, dependence, and trust. I'm hoping that what I've been through can encourage one of you guys to be real with yourselves and what's going on in your heart and in your spiritual life, between you and your wife, between you and God. Many of you guys who might know me from the outside looking in before I got hurt, I believe I know I had a great life. A dream job. I worked for a wonderful company, wonderful company. I work for Wonderful, by the way. So, but dream job, and I was part of the band. Was a triathlete, best shape of my life, and I felt like I had a lot going on. But under the surface, one other thing is my wife and I. We'd been married for 5 years, and we were kind of wondering what was next in our lives. We weren't sure what God had planned. We weren't able to have kids at that time, and so we were looking. Maybe God wants us to adopt a child. Maybe God wants us to pursue in vitro. What is next? Well, God answered that question pretty quickly after that. Not how I thought He would. On February 26, 2021, I experienced a horrific accident at work. I fell and I broke my neck. So up until that point, I was in a sanctification process, but there were things in my life that I would not surrender to God. Much like Gollum in The Lord of the Rings would not surrender that ring, there's some things in my life that I had hidden that I was holding on to. I was dealing with materialism. I was dealing with wanting to buy the next thing. There was never enough. I would always want the next toy or the next, and it got so bad that I would frustrate my wife, asking her, "When can I get the next thing? When I can?" Some of you guys might be able to relate with that. Like we all want our toys, right? I was dealing with hiding vaping from my wife. She didn't want me to vape. I liked the flavor, and I was hiding that from her. While I was driving to work, I would just puff on that vape, and every single time I puffed, I was feeling that guilt that Pastor Roger was talking about. But most importantly, and the thing that I can never kick from when I was a young man, I had turned to lust and pornography at times, Instagram, Netflix. It's all over the place. It's pervasive, and every single time I would surrender it to the Lord, I would go back to it, And my wife and I had dealt with it in our marriage at one point, but I just kept it secret. I was embarrassed every single time to share that with my wife, and it had power over me. And there was never a time that I can remember where I didn't feel clean before God, where I felt clean before God. And so I really related with what Pastor Roger was talking about tonight. So then I had that horrific fall, and I remember thinking, just a normal day at work, just like it could happen to any one of us, a horrific accident, driving, whatever it is. and I fell, and I remember thinking I'm dead. And then when I woke up, and I was still alive, and the scariest thought was facing Jesus with unrepentant sin, or sin that I had not surrendered to Jesus. I knew he loved me. I knew I had a family at church that loved me. I knew my wife loved me because she didn't leave me when I told her about my pornography issues. And yet I couldn't stop sipping on that secret sin. It was a comfort. All the things I was grasping at other than in the Lord. And many of you guys might have known that it looked great from the outside. But yeah, that scared me, facing Jesus with that sin. But God chose to keep me on this earth. And that I remember praying right there. And I believe that laying there on the ground, God freed me from the bondage of my sin. Because I remember praying with my boss that day, laying on the ground, confessing the sins. I had no shame confessing my sins in that moment because I thought that I was going to go see Jesus. And I'm like, man, he's given me this opportunity. I better take it. And so I did. I remember laying there and just confessing my sins and just thinking, man, I might not make it. I was telling Lola, the safety lady, tell my wife I love her, and I thought that was it. Well, then I ended up going to surgery. My work chartered a flight. God has used, my company to really get me to this point, the doctors and the insurance companies and all that. But my work chartered a flight, got me this surgery that I needed to fix my neck. And they sent me to one of the premier rehab centers in the country for spinal cord injury. So even in that, God was proving his provision and providing for me in my life. And flash forward to my time in the hospital. I remember when I started realizing all the things I couldn't do, I was realizing that I had not surrendered my life in the way that Christ was calling me to. I remember I had to surrender my fingers. Many of you guys know I was a guitar player. Played in the band right up here on this very stage last year during COVID, or the year before. I remember surrendering my fingers. I remember having to surrender my ever walking again. I had to surrender my bowels. I like taking showers. I just surrendered taking showers the same way I used to. And as I peeled back those layers of surrender, I realized there's almost nothing that I had truly surrendered to the Lord actively. Surrendering my relationship with my wife to God, surrendering my dreams of being an Ironman triathlete, everything that I used to do, everything that I was comfortable doing, I'd spent my time doing, it didn't matter. Because when I was faced with eternity, none of those things mattered, except for my relationship with Jesus. I believe that God gave me, I believe that I had made God part of my life, but I didn't allow God, I didn't choose, I don't want to say anything wrong, but God was part of my life, but he wasn't my life all the way. And I was living fairly deceptively, to all of you guys and to God, and most importantly, to my wife. As Pastor Roger was going through and Pastor Andrew was going through Matthew, I remember seeing all the miracles in Matthew and seeing that, God healed the paralyzed man. And I'm sitting there looking at God and God, you have the power to heal me. Why aren't you healing me? And he taught me he didn't heal the paralyzed man for the sake of the paralyzed man to walk again. He healed the paralyzed man so that the people in the crowd And people, for us, for all of eternity, could see that he had the power to forgive sins. And the power, yeah. And so I learned that through surrender, that led to me depending on God in a deeper way that I hadn't experienced before. I remember laying there in the hospital bed, and when I first heard Charlene singing that song, I depend on you. We sang that tonight. The songs that we sang tonight were songs that God spoke to me in the hospital. And the lyrics are so rich. When you're truly depending on God, you can barely sing that song clearly because you know what that means. It means that you trust him with your life. And I realized that as I depended on him for my daily bread, for my next breath, I depended on him for my sleep at night. And he proved faithful through melatonin. But he still proved faithful. I'm not going to lie to you guys. I still have had struggles, with depending on him daily. I've had struggles with even after I've surrendered and I don't have the desires I used to for, the online pornography. I still struggle with that since then. And so it's a continuing work that God is doing in me. And I'm thankful that he forgives me. I have to confess my sins, right? I confess my sin, and I know that he has, he forgives me for those because he looks at Jesus instead of me. Just like you, brother Josh, Psalm 139 was huge when I was in the hospital. I remember Pastor Andrew messaged me on Facebook, and he's like, consider this verse, man, because I was talking about that. And, I remember that, I remember asking God, and it's something that we should all do consider, and I continuously do, not as much as I should, but I remember, God, remove any wicked way in me. Search my heart and remove any wicked way, because it wants to come up. It wants to come up in me all the time. He wants me to depend on myself. The devil wants me to do that. I learned that I can't have dependence on God unless I surrender to him, and that's constant. And like Pastor Roger was talking about, he can only give me grace to do that every day. I'm learning to trust God, not for what he can do for me. He's already done it. And I'm learning to love God for not what he can do for me. Example, make me walk again. Example, make all this difficulty in my life go away. He doesn't have to do that. He's already shown how much he loves me through what he did for me on the cross. As I near the end, I just want to say it's not worth it to live a partially surrendered life that is drifting through life, maybe looking good on the outside, but on the inside, that guilt, that pulls on your heart every single time you do something you know you shouldn't. Every single time you reject Jesus. Every single time I reject Jesus. Living free from my sin and bondage is such an amazing feeling. It's so awesome. So what I would say, and what I've learned, and there's a lyric I'm going to share, but I'm surrender your heart, depend on him for everything, and trust in his plan. I can trust in his plan for my life because he's proven how much he loves me already. It's better to prepare now than face eternity on the floor after a horrific accident and find out you didn't prepare enough, or find out that you didn't surrender your life to the Lord when you face eternity. There's a song that I kept coming back to, and it's called Morning by Morning by Pat Barrett. And it's a song about, the beginning of the song, it says, daily, daily I surrender. strength for the day, bright hope for tomorrow. Awaken my soul to sing. And it says, I will trust where you lead. I will trust when I can't see. Morning by morning, great is your faithfulness to me. I will trust with all my heart, for you are good. You always are. Morning by morning, great is your faithfulness to me. And then it goes on, because the story's not finished yet, right? It says, all fear be reminded that my future is secure. My Father has spoken, and he keeps his every word. I know how much the Lord loves me and loves you by what he's already done. And but the story's not done yet. As long as we're on this side of the dirt, we still have a choice. I still have a choice to daily surrender, daily depend, and daily trust on him. And so I saw like 5 people come up in the altar call, and I know there's more of you guys that need to surrender and daily and whatever it is that you need to depend on the Lord with. And so I think that's all I have to say. Thank you guys for listening and hearing my story.